My encounter with the spirit of compassion began unexpectedly while I was waiting at Kate Hudson's home for a nanny interview. I arrived already emotionally and physically depleted after a difficult period in my life. I had been battling depression, struggling to extricate myself from an abusive relationship, and the day before the interview, I had survived a frightening car accident that could have seriously injured me. While I waited, I noticed a thin, elderly-looking man dressed in a simple brown robe of a monk. When I spoke to him, he seemed astonished. "You can see me. You can hear me?" he said. At first, I assumed he was an eccentric guest or perhaps an actor playing some elaborate joke on me. I was at a movie star's house, after all. But that explanation became increasingly difficult to maintain when I realized that no one else seemed able to see him. When I acknowledged him in front of members of the household staff, they appeared confused about whom I was talking to. Eventually, the monk explained that he was not human and, according to him, not a spirit in the conventional sense. He described himself as an extraterrestrial or higher dimensional being in direct service to God, existing metaphorically at the fingertip of God. He said he had been sent to help alleviate human suffering through Anthony William, the medical medium. Anthony publicly referred to him simply as Spirit, but he told me that he had no true name and was most closely known as the Voice of Compassion or Spirit of Compassion. Our conversation ranged across medicine, consciousness, God, angels, healing, beauty, energy, light, animals, black holes, telepathy, and the nature of the soul. He began describing aspects of my health in extraordinary detail, including abnormalities in my eyes that I did not fully understand at the time and that were later confirmed by a neuro-ophthalmologist. He also spoke about members of my family and my deceased dog, Honey. He described me as having an enormous blue healer's aura and suggested that my ability to perceive him indicated an unusual spiritual sensitivity. He seemed to think I was descended from wheels and thrones. One of the most startling moments occurred when he asked me to close my eyes and point toward where I sensed him standing. I closed my eyes and immediately pointed directly in front of me. When I opened them, he was standing there. That was when I noticed something I had somehow failed to comprehend before. His mouth wasn't moving when he spoke. He pointed out that neither was mine. According to him, we were communicating telepathically. I later attempted to record our conversation on my phone. When I played the recording back, there was essentially silence, interrupted only occasionally by the sound of me laughing. I deleted it because hearing that silence frightened me more than I expected. Spirit also wore a necklace bearing an unusual symbol. He seemed surprised that I could see it, and even more surprised when I discovered that I could hold it. He identified the symbol as a shepherd's staff, representing healing and leadership. He suggested that perhaps the necklace was meant for me. Overwhelmed and uncertain that I deserved something that seemed so important, I declined it, a decision I would later wish I had made differently. What began as a private and bewildering experience became even more extraordinary when I finally encountered Anthony William. I had never heard of the medical medium before that day. When Kate later explained who her special guest was and told me that he received medical information from a being he called Spirit. Everything I had experienced during the preceding hours suddenly took on an entirely different significance. When Anthony and I unexpectedly crossed paths, I told him, "Your friend told me to talk to you." He asked what friend. I told him it was the monk standing behind him. I explained that the monk had told me, "Talk to Antony, he will help you." Anthony's reaction stunned me. He told me that only Spirit called him Antony. He asked me to describe the being I was seeing and to tell him where Spirit was standing. I did. Anthony told me that my description corresponded with what he remembered Spirit looking like, and that I had located him where Anthony typically perceived his voice. What followed felt almost surreal. Other guests began asking questions, and Anthony and I appeared at times to receive the same communication from Spirit. At one point, we began repeating the same message simultaneously. We both stopped. I apologized because I thought Spirit wanted me to speak. Anthony told me to continue, and afterward confirmed to the others that what I had said was what he had heard. For me, this changed the nature of the experience. Until then, I could still tell myself that perhaps something strange was happening entirely within my own perception. Now other people were responding to what I was experiencing. Eventually, the intensity became physically overwhelming. Spirit began commenting on my physiological state as I felt myself becoming faint, while people around me continued asking questions. Unable to concentrate, I finally snapped at Spirit. "Will you please not talk while I am talking? I can hardly think." Everyone stared at me. Kate said, "No one was talking while you were talking." Then Anthony said, "I heard him." Shortly afterward, I nearly collapsed. The experience did not end with Spirit. During this altered spiritual encounter, I also perceived a brilliant presence, whom Spirit reverently called Miriam, or Mary, and later a man I understood to be Yeshua, or Jesus. Those experiences opened an even larger confrontation within me concerning God, trauma, identity, divine love, healing, responsibility, and what it might mean to live a life of spiritual service. Yet perhaps the most important question Spirit asked me was also the simplest. Again and again he asked, "What are you?" At first I tried to answer with the identities I understood. I gave him my ancestry. I gave him my name. I gave him my occupations and beliefs. None of those answers seemed to be what he was asking. Only much later did I begin to understand the deeper significance that question held for me. Who or what am I beneath my history, trauma, appearance, profession, nationality, relationships, fears, and the identity I constructed in order to survive? My encounter with the Spirit of compassion did not give me a neat, spiritually happily ever after. In many ways, it initiated a prolonged dark night of the soul. I struggled to understand what had happened. I wanted external validation. I questioned my perceptions, searched for meaning, and tried to reconcile an extraordinary experience with the ordinary reality of being human. Over time, however, I began to understand that perhaps the purpose of awakening is not to prove that we are extraordinary. It is to teach us how to become more fully human. The lasting message I carried away from my encounter was one of interconnectedness. that we are spiritual beings having a physical experience, that consciousness, body, nature, and the divine are not necessarily separate, and that the highest expression of spiritual awareness is not power or specialness, but love and compassion. I once thought awakening meant discovering something extraordinary outside of myself. My journey since then has increasingly taught me the opposite. However mysterious the experience was, the path back to the divine ultimately led inward, and then inevitably outward again toward other people. We are like drops of water in a cosmic ocean, distinct, yet never truly separate. Whatever we are, whatever we believe, whatever mysteries lies beyond our understanding, I came away believing that our responsibility here is remarkably simple. Choose love. Relieve suffering where you can. And please, be kind.